Welcome to this fantastic conference. It's so lovely to be here and exciting to see so many people from so many places. I haven't remembered a time really when we've had so many different speakers from different places, so it's great. I'm really looking forward to hearing about all the excellent work from across the world in relation to recovery. So I have the privilege of being the director of West Wales Action for Mental Health. We're a registered mental health charity that works across West Wales. Often people have not heard of us because we're behind the scenes, and we have been for over 20 years. We work quietly, below the radar, but we're persistent, developing mental health services and supporting existing projects. So we provide information, training, development, and facilitate individual and care involvement in mental health change and services. And we currently support over 100 different projects across West Wales at the moment and have 14 networks that we facilitate. And a key part of the work we do in terms of facilitation is promoting partnership working and community development. When we first started, the aim of WHAM was to develop voluntary sector mental health services at a time when there was a massive move towards community care. And a key to that was to encourage the wider community to understand mental health and to tackle stigma. So, for example, we've worked with employers to provide them with training to understand mental health needs, and to also understand how they can also be a mentally healthy employer too for their staff. We also have a network of people with lived experience that work with us to deliver training. So we always try and make sure that there's someone with lived experience with us when we're delivering training. And we do talks to a huge variety of places. So we've made huge inroads in this, but there's so much more work to do. In the past, the partnerships that we were involved in tended to be between voluntary sector mental health services and psychiatric services. And in the beginning, the number of voluntary sector projects was quite small, and they were quite small in number, but they've grown into large, vibrant projects, and we have over 15 different projects for mental health alone in Carmarthenshire. And many of them have got stalls around the room today, so please take the chance to go and have a look at them and have a chat and find out more. So the partnerships that we're involved in within WHAM are wide and varied, and these have changed significantly over the years. We still work very closely with mainstream mental health services, but increasingly we're working with community projects, generic community projects, things like the Ramblers Association. So we're learning huge amounts of things and getting very healthy in the meantime. So ensuring that there is mentally healthy, friendly communities is something that's talked about a lot at the moment, but it's so important to ensuring that we have a whole life for us all. Traditionally, community regeneration was seen as separate from mental health development. The two worlds didn't meet. However, we were all working with the same communities, the same people. So now we do. We work together, and there's a real clear understanding that actually mental health development is also community regeneration and community development. So hence, we work with all sorts of groups, faith-based groups, leisure, housing, skate parks, surf projects, a whole range. So there are no limits really within WHAM to who we will work with on mental health, because mental health is everyone's business. In developing mental health support and awareness, we need to ensure that we work with as many people as possible with a diversity of views. And we have to work hard within WHAM to ensure that we have this diversity. And we need to make sure that it includes carers as well as individuals, and that they're an integral part of any partnerships. So recently we've worked with partners to develop something called Botanic, which is a surfing project, and I know the surfing project Botanic will be pleased I'm mentioning them here today. But you'll also be able to find out more in the presentation later on today. So I am saying surfing. I'm not talking about web surfing. I'm talking about surfing in the water. It's something that we've got in West Wales, which is a fantastic asset. We've got these beautiful, wonderful beaches, and actually the surfing project is making use of those to help people in their mental health recovery. So hopefully I've bigged that one up and you're really interested, and that will be the presentation you go to. So this means that our partners are local surf schools, surfers, surf life-saving clubs. It's a whole new area of partnerships for us, really, and very different to anything that we were involved in 20 years ago. Partnership working and community development are not easy areas of work. They sound easy when they're words on a paper, and when they're written into strategies and projects, and it's a given that we do these things. However, everyone brings their own issues. I'd originally written baggage and crossed it out, but it really feels like that sometimes. Everything comes to the table. And we all bring our values to those tables, and they can be vastly different between partners. So in order for this to work, we need a common value base, a shared language, trust, understanding, respect. And these need to be developed and not skipped over, which they are sometimes. So it's vital for any successful partnership or work in our communities that we spend time on these key ingredients and we allow them to be mixed and put together and agreed. I'm confident that we will see huge developments in mental health over the next 20 years. I'm amazed at how far things have developed, and sometimes we do not always see this. My journey into mental health began as a young child, as my grandfather had a diagnosis of schizophrenia. His experience of using mental health services between the late 1940s and 1980s varied massively and was very different from what he would have been offered today. I saw as a young child the effect of my grandfather's diagnosis on him, his family, and ultimately everyone around him, his community. In the end, it robbed him of his quality of life, his family, and ultimately, in the end, his life. My grandma was told when he was admitted to a large Victorian psychiatric asylum that's still being used at the time, which had over 1,500 patients, that it would be much kinder on him and her to forget about him and move on with her life. My grandma was the most amazing woman, and she never did, but life changed for the whole family. So for me, the key to things being different at that time would have been a partnership. The services at the time needed to work in partnership with my grandfather and my grandma and the wider family to facilitate his recovery. They needed to explain to both what the diagnosis meant, what could help, and also work to explore options for him and for her. My grandfather and grandma could then have worked in partnership to explain what was happening to their children and to tackle the fear and the stigma. So my grandfather went from being one of the key people in his community. He was a well-known ballroom dancer at the time across Yorkshire. He was known in all the sort of halls around there, to somebody that was feared in his community, that he was then an outsider, and he never became part of that community again. And that was even when he left hospital, really, it had that legacy. So for me then, the legacy of that lack of partnership working with him, the family and the community was felt throughout the generations of our family and is still being felt today, really. So when I see services now and the attitudes that are around for mental health now, I know how far we've come. Wow, a little bird, amazing. Thank you, that's applause. In such a short space of time. So the hospital that he was in is long closed. I think it's now luxury flats as well, so ironic really. And a good thing is that there's a website running to archive all the memories of people and families that they wish to store, because actually it's now passing into history, that legacy. So, and there are some things that need to be remembered. Recently, one of the projects we've been discussing with some community organisations are about organising dances, community dances and tea dances, and particularly with a 1940s theme, because vintage is really in at the moment, isn't it? And I've been looking into research from Germany, which looks at therapeutic benefits that's evidenced of music and dancing, particularly in relation to memory loss and dementia. And the theory is being that music and dance can tap into memories within the brain, and temporary changes of mood and states can happen. So for me, things are sort of coming full circle, really, with that. It's quite nice. So it's now acceptable and hopefully encouraged for everyone to be open about their mental health and their experiences. And this can be really the only way that we truly understand recovery and mental health. For a long time, and it's not for everyone still, people can't be open about their mental health. And if you were open about your mental health and you worked in mental health, it was viewed as a weakness. And it's not that long ago that people wouldn't have been able to work in certain roles if they'd been open about their mental health. So for me, really, experiences that I had as a child and my family and everything I see in my daily work are motivations for change, for improvement. And I see the fantastic future that we've got ahead for mental health because I see how far we've come. But this is only possible if we all work together in partnership and we develop our communities alongside the work we're doing. Whole life and whole system is rooted in the community, and we are all part of a community, and this means different things to different people. The first steps are identifying for us where is our community, who is within that community, and actually which communities do we want to be part of. Do we feel part of it? Is it important to us in our life? About 15 years ago, I went to a conference in Leeds, and I heard someone talking there about the term recovery, and it stayed with me all of that time. And for any of you who've come on my mental health training, I always talk about it because it is so important to me. So what they talked about back then was, for them, they felt the term recovery didn't quite fit for them in terms of what they'd been through in their mental health. What she felt at that time was that actually it was discovery. And her argument was, it's impossible to go through mental health difficulties and not discover something new about yourself. Sometimes upsetting, sometimes scary, but also sometimes wonderful. So these things about you and your life and your community around you change. So for her, it was a journey of discovery, not recovering to the same place, but discovering a different one, and for her, a better place. So that stayed with me over the years, and I recently read a book by Tony Hawks in which he gave a comment. Someone had given him a comment at one of his shows. He's a comedian. And it was quite a profound comment, really. I don't know if they stole it from somewhere. But life is a mystery to be lived and not a problem to be solved. And for me, that sticks with mental health, because I think mental health is a mystery which is to be lived and not a problem to be solved. So I think this comes fairly close to summing up where I feel about recovery at the moment and about where we're moving to in mental health. I hope that all the partnerships that we're involved in from today and all the work we do and the communities we're working with strengthen and grow. However, I know that some of the foundations that we're laying now in the work we're doing will be in another lifetime, and I probably won't get to see some of those outcomes of that work because it can take a long time, but the foundations are building. So I'm confident things are moving in the right directions, and we are laying the foundations for a positive future, really, in terms of mental